If you have said to yourself, I should write that, or if someone has said to you, you should write that, then I'm talking to you because you need to write. And that's why you're tuned in to yWrite. Hi, welcome to yWrite. I'm your host, Angela Grout. Thanks for joining us today. You know, this is a show filled with conversations with writers about writing to help you write. Because, you know, we all know how to write, and as a child, I remember when I got my first diary. Do you remember that? You got your first diary and you would document your day and a little bit about how you were feeling. Well, that's how it began with me too. And then I started journalizing even more, which broke out into some poetry. And, you know, as a child, writing poetry are similar to prayers, and it's making me feel connected with myself. In college and high school, I started writing stories that were more about not just my world, but finding out that I'm part of a bigger world. And when you're learning that you're part of a big world, you find out all sorts of things that sometimes you don't like in the big world. So journalizing is a way that you can put it on paper to figure out exactly where it might go to make sense for you, which is one of the reasons why I've written 3 books, in order to find peace and sometimes clarity with what goes on in the world and in my world. Today, I have a special author in who also began with journalizing, and she also has provided a journal for us to start writing also. Her name is Judith Cosby. Judith lives here in Feeding Hills, Massachusetts, which is pretty much the sister town of Agawam, where we film. And she is an advocate to encourage others to see strength in overcoming adversaries with hope and healing. And she does that through her books. And she also has 3 books that she's written. She has published them not only 3 consecutive years, which I'm very impressed with, to write 3 books and have them published within 3 consecutive years. And most recently, she started a companion journal called Weaving Threads of Gratitude. She's working on her 5th book, and her 4th book is going to be released this fall. So we're going to talk to her about that. She's a graduate from my own dad's alma mater, American International College, here in Springfield, Massachusetts. And she is a friend, a neighbor, and a fellow author. I'd like to welcome Judith Cosby to the show. Hi, Judy. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to talk to you. I know we have talked a few times, personally, just about our own writing journeys, and we're kind of in a tie right now. Not that it's a competition at all.
No.
But we both have 3 books. I know there's a lot to the writing process. One of the things that I liked about writing my books is, or at least picking them out, when you're actually doing the formatting, is the style, the size, and things. And I just thought it was very interesting that, we picked very similar sizes and things like that. I was like, oh, there's so much. So tell me a little bit, tell our audience a little bit about why you started writing and what it did for you.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm mirroring you again because I journaled a lot. Probably back starting around 12, 13, dabbled in poetry. Yeah. Very bad. Only my aunt really has my original poetry. And I found it very cathartic to write, whether it was a short story or whether it was compiling moments in my life.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to be an author. I'm not saying that it wasn't like on my radar, but basically life got in the way, and that was like an extracurricular kind of activity. It wasn't anything I was going to actively pursue.
Yeah, it's funny. I went back to read one of my journals saying, I don't know why I'm documenting all these things. And I go, well, maybe someday I'm supposed to publish my memoirs. And this was very young, and I'm thinking, why would I publish my memoirs? Who wants to read my memoir?
You think that,
yes.
But you never know what life brings you, that you could probably help somebody else with.
Of course. So many memoirs that I do read, and, we're going to get into yours a little bit in a second. But, it's like they do resonate with your own life of what you're going on, and it also helps you to empathize with what other people are going on.
Exactly. Oh, absolutely. It opens up your world completely because, let's face it, we all go through various things, different things. But when you start to realize how small the world really is and how many people walk the same journey, maybe little different aspects of it, but the same journey. But basically, my book became, I guess, I gave birth to it, if you will, through two significant types of events. And I know we were going to kind of talk about this today. So one aspect of the birth of Threads was I had a life change. My daughter took ill. It changed the trajectory of my career. My husband, who was fabulous, said to me, this is the time, write your book. So that was that catalyst. And then the other one was I took a workshop. I won a workshop, writing workshop, and again, my family.
You won it?
I won it.
So it was gifted from the universe.
That's right. I said it was divine intervention. And when I took this, I went into a situation that was, I had this very raw manuscript, no idea what I was doing. And when I got there, it was a publisher. It was a New York bestselling author, Marie Bosquick was our instructor. And then I had 4 other authors that were actual published. So the first night I worked with them, I thought, I am like this little tadpole in this big pond.
I know that feeling. You feel so out of your league.
You do,
like, what am I doing here? Like, these are real authors who really published a book.
And you automatically think you can't be. But, and I'm going to talk about this little bit of divine intervention. I decided I wasn't going to stay. You know, I stayed the night, and I know this sounds really bad and really like a big chicken, but I felt overwhelmed. And I thought, I'm not cut out for this. And so I was going to go home. I got up, I packed, I got up early, and I decided to make tea in the country kitchen. Beautiful house, beautiful inn. And when I went down there, one of the fellow writers was there. He was having his tea in this little window cubby. And the dawn was coming up. It was very gray. And I was embarrassed because I'm fully dressed. So he had to have an idea that I was escaping. And he shared these words with me. He said, I've been thinking about you all night. Because I think it was obvious that I was overwhelmed and I had, I wasn't feeling comfortable with what was going on. He said, your book has something to it. I thought about it all night. I thought about my daughter. I thought about the sunsets, the sunrises and sunsets, and that you talk about. And he said, I want you to stick it out. He said, but that's up to you. And he said this. He said, either go home, go hard, or go home. And I, you know, at that moment, it was a defining moment for me. And so I worked at it. I pitched my book, and at the end, I had no lie, even the publisher had tears in his eyes. They said I hit it out of the park. And what that did for me was it gave me the trajectory to say, I can do this. And because honestly, if that guy didn't talk to me that morning, I really don't believe we would even be sitting here, because I would have just given up. And so it was just, to me, it was divine intervention. It was a greater force saying, see it through.
Oh, that greater force, when it speaks to you, it speaks loud.
Right.
And I always feel like, you know, if you don't follow through with it, you'll know that you made the wrong choice.
That's true.
You know, and when you have followed through with it and you listen to it, it's a little bit more smooth sailing.
Correct.
You know, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah. And it empowers you to...
That's it.
To know that you have the universe kind of having your back as...
Right, and your own self-doubt gets into your head, right? But if you have someone, not just family and friends, because let's face it, they love you.
Yeah, they don't want to
so they want you to do it, but this were perfect strangers. And through that experience, I got a mentor who was another author. She introduced me to my content editor, who, you know, like, I'm just saying, it literally unfolded. It was like a map unfolded and said, okay.
Yeah, and you can't unfold it faster than you can.
Right.
You know, I mean, and it's so true. Like, so many people are like, oh, how do you write a book? And how do you get it published? And, you know, how? But it's like, well, just do it. Write the book. Write the book first, and the other steps will fall into place. Because if you try to finish the end product before, you know, you've even begun.
Right.
You know.
Right, exactly.
You know, I made many notes, you know, and took a lot of classes, you know, while I was doing my second and third books, and, you know, just to learn you know, what to do if I wanted to seek traditional publishing or things like that. But it was just like the notes I put on the back burner. And for me, I always like refer to my books almost as like my weddings. because I was a florist for years.
Of course.
And,
Yes,
it's like I could do, 40, 50 weddings in a year, and 40, 50 files line up, and I can put information in each one, kind of get them ready. But until it's time to start working with that perishable product, I can't do anything more. So until the book is actually finished, I can't do anything
Absolutely.
more.
That's right.
You can't take those next steps.
You can't.
So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that you get that.
I do.
So you went to this group, you met some publishers. What was it like to start publishing?
So I left there very energized. I was ready to go, and that's when I actually started to look at the big picture, and I know you are aware of this. You can either go traditional, you can go self-publishing. There's some hybrid publishings, and I started to really immerse myself now that I had committed to the process, finishing my book and ready to publish. I started to look at the big picture, and I did kind of like a checklist for me, and my checklist was I didn't start this to my 50s. So I felt I had time against me. I did not have the luxury of time.
Ditto, I get that.
Mind, right? So I looked at that, and not that I didn't want to go traditional at all. I'm not knocking that whatsoever. I just was realistic. I didn't know if this was going to lead anywhere. Threads, I had no idea it was going to lead to 2 more things. Actually, now almost 5. And so I looked at it as a one and done. I also looked at the fact that I didn't want to take the time to query the what are they? I've just lost
the
my
agents.
The agents,
Yeah.
right? The literary agents to get you to the publisher, so a publisher can sit on it. I said no. Let's just do this. I feel very strongly, and I did it. And again, I say this. It's not for everybody. You got to put your money up front. You've got to, and then you've got the burden of the marketing and the burden of the social media platform. But what happened beyond that point was, again, another map unfolded, and these pathways fell of how I could market my book. And it's been this learning process. I am in no way a pro at this, but what I have done has worked for me. It's got me to the next step.
I recently had a literary agent on the show.
Oh, okay.
And we had talked. No, we had talked. And he had said to me, and I don't think he said this on the show. We spoke before and after. But he said, why didn't you take April Rain to a traditional publisher? And I said, I really did think about it, but being at the age that I am, thinking time is working against me. Publishing, the traditional publishing houses can take 3 to 5 years to publish a book.
Right.
You do self-publishing, you can get it out in, I want to say 3 to 5 minutes, but 3 to 5 months.
Right.
And it's a much faster way. However, you do struggle with, trying to get a wider audience, trying to reach out to, the demographics of who you want to get, whether it's nationwide or, worldwide. But doing it in the self-publishing method, there are ways to do that. I had went through Create Space, and you can hire, them to do some marketing for you.
Right.
But as an author, it's really, you do everything yourself.
That's right. You do.
You can't, no one else can write the book for you. People can format it, they can spell check it, they can do some editing, but it all comes down to, you actually doing it. And then no one knows the story better than you.
That's right.
So how is someone going to market that book if they don't know the story?
That's right. Absolutely. And even like when you find a content editor, or I did, you want someone who's going to mirror your voice.
Yes.
So there's a lot of elements to it that I didn't even take into consideration when I started the process. And of course, you think that what you've written, I really love that chapter, and then someone cuts it up, and you're like, wait a minute, I think that's a great chapter. And so, it's learning to also take the criticism and maybe see things a little differently so that you do improve your writing. There's just, I just learned so much through the process, and it's something I can't believe how much I love. I absolutely love it.
What is your favorite part about being an author? Like the writing part, the talking about it part, the coming up with ideas?
Oh God,
I know.
That when you talk, I love like the creation process, right? I love getting lost in the prose. I absolutely love. I hate. No, it's a love-hate relationship, and I don't even like to use hate. I am an anxious person, so I dread going to signings. I dread the moment that I'm going to meet the public, and yet thrive on it.
Yeah.
I love hearing people's stories. I love conversing with
hearing how they connected with your story.
I love it because, you realize how similar we all are on so many levels. And believe it or not, I love the editing process with my editor. Oh my gosh, I love the back and forth.
Oh, wow.
I love fighting for things and then learning from it. I don't know. It's just, I love the process. I really do. I hate proofing. And I really am not a fan of doing the social media because I feel like you're preaching to the choir a little after a while, but you have to do it. It's a necessary evil. Yeah. So, I always pray that the people who hear from me don't go, oh, here she goes again,
So I love the thread that you've threaded together with all three books, using the word thread, and how beautiful it is to have things woven together. And you do that in your stories where you're weaving things together and, showing how, we all have threads in our life.
Correct.
And, we're weaving something together here. But the first book is a little bit more about your personal life and your daughter.
Yes. Yeah, it's about it's a lifespan of weaves. But
and then the spirit threads, you go more into some animals.
Yes, I do. I do.
And there's a story about a fox.
Yes.
And was that like the kind of what catapulted a little bit of this story?
So, a long story short, one of my a reader really begged me from Threads to go on and maybe write a little bit more about my experience because she was looking for strength in her own life and what she was going through. And at first I didn't want to do it, but in the meantime, my daughter's ill. We're back and forth to Boston, and this wild fox comes in my yard. And actually, the wild fox follows me on our walks with the dogs. And it sometimes when I look back at it, I can't believe it was real. I know that sounds really strange, but it was such a unique experience. And I never, I would tell you, I would never like a fox. It wasn't like it was an animal I even ever drew or wanted to know. And yet she was a mother, and she came into our lives at this time when we were going through things. And because I was stuck at home with my daughter, so to speak, she became a part of our landscape. She really was inspirational on the really bad days. She would just come out and lay in our yard, and she bestowed this sense of peace
as like I'm here, having that again alone. Universal connection. You're not alone. You're not alone. I know what you're going through.
Right. And it really, the process of knowing her and her family over that year was phenomenal. It was a phenomenal experience. That's all I can say. I don't know why I got it. I'm grateful that for whatever reason, but she became a thread in that story because I watched her through a mother's eyes. I watched her fighting for her kits. Nature's cruel. And I watched the camaraderie that we had, if you will. And so she was not a pet. I stress that to everybody. This was not a pet situation.
This was just a visiting wildlife.
This was wildlife that I got to observe, really observe. And it was exciting.
And as much as the books are in memoir, but they're very spiritual.
Correct.
It has a very spiritual tone. And I think that a lot of people can resonate with understanding signs,
right?
And seeing those signs and how they can bring you peace and comfort, especially in a time that's extremely challenging. Right. And when we're saying, how are we going to get through this? Or why are you letting this happen to me?
Right.
And, having those signs to say, you're not alone. I know what you're going through. You're going to make it. And, your book shares with an audience that message too. You're going to make it.
You're going to make it. And, you have to weave, your way through it. You have to take the knots, you have to take the beautiful threads, and you have to keep going with it. And, I walk in faith, and life isn't easy. It isn't. And my heart goes out to anybody who's struggling with anything. But my whole mindset is that if you can find even one gem of positivity in your day, just one, you can get through the day. And that's it. It's one day at a time.
I'll share my cover for An Angel's Journey. The girl's eyes are covered, and I did that because it was walk by faith and not by sight.
Yes.
It really was let's listen to what we hear, what's going on us, and let's hear with our senses and not so much with our sight.
Correct.
Because a lot of people do need to see, to believe things. And,
true.
When you're talking about having faith that, you're not alone. I mean, it isn't something that you can always see. However, you did get to see it in the manifestation of this real fox that just shows up in the yard every day.
And brought like peace to my family too.
Yeah.
Like my family was like embracing this fox. Like we looked for her because we all enjoyed her.
Yeah.
And we enjoyed watching her. So I mean, it brought out an entire piece, not just for me, but for everybody.
So it was one of those like, oh, I saw the fox today, and everybody was like, oh, thank goodness you saw the fox. And
it was the funniest thing. I'm at Walker, and I was walking one day, and this neighbor, I don't know her very well, but I know her, and she pulled up to me. She goes, I saw your fox on the next street, and I had to laugh because I'm like, it's my fox.
It's my fox, yeah. They knew. No, I mean, and we do look to nature for signs.
Right.
I know when I did April Rain, I would sit at the same desk every day, and I'd look outside in the woods, and different animals would show up, and it got to the point that every day, like, I kind of expected some animal to show up. And then I started looking up the spiritual meanings of those animals. So I was like, okay, what does this have to do with, me today? Why would this, rabbit or pheasant or, and there was a moose once, but I didn't see it, but my neighbor saw it, and I'm like, there's a moose in our backyard.
That's so hilarious.
Or no, not a moose. I'm sorry. It was a yak.
Oh, okay. That's even weirder.
It was a yak. There were 3 yaks. I don't know.
That's so funny.
Very, very weird. But, and besides, just looking in the backyard, for the animals and the universal signs, I personally, I don't know if you would do this, when I write, when I finished a chapter, I would put a rock in my backyard, and I started a little rock wall so I could see my process.
Oh my God, I love that.
I just wanted to, I was probably maybe 13, 14 chapters in, and I just sometimes would look and say, how far am I? Like, I don't even know how long this book was going to be. I had no idea. And then one day I had found this rock, and it was really cool. And I'm like, I'd love to put like a little kind of like rock wall. So I started doing it. And, after maybe 20 rocks, my husband noticed. It's like, what are you doing? I go, those are all my chapters. But it was like I could look and,
see the progression.
I could see the progression of it. And it was just like that physical, like tangible thing to see.
Yeah.
So just... you look to nature to do, some things.
Yeah.
I also planted some flowers back there, and I know that you're a gardener.
I am.
And, I don't consider myself a gardener. I do consider myself a florist, as in I will cut blooms.
Yeah, all florists.
Sounds like I kill them.
Quite the job.
Cut them and create them into an arrangement.
Yeah.
But what I do grow is in dirt, and you don't necessarily do a lot of dirt gardening. You are into water gardens?
I do all kinds. So we have a large vegetable garden, and I do have, my pride and joy is my koi pond water garden area. And so it started as like the size of our table with, one pond, and then another pond came, and fish and bullfrogs. And then I started to acquire planting and reading all about the ecological system of how you keep your water clear naturally. And then I grew a garden beyond it. So then I was in the dirt, creating this mecca of plants that would look woodland. And I did, statuaries and stone paths.
Oh, it sounds beautiful.
And it's very small, but it's a section of our yard where, again, that's where I will sit with my little wicker chair and write or read or.
And it's very similar to like your writing process, where you start off with something small, and you're like, I'm just gonna write a journal of what's going on, and try to, maybe you'll make it into a book, and then you come out with one book, and then it expands beyond.
It does.
And you're like, okay, now I have more here and here. We have the Weaving Threads Gratitude Journal, and which is something that people can actually write in.
Correct.
And follow their own personal journey in finding that gratitude every day.
That's right.
You have a 4th book coming. Mm-hmm. And I hear the rumor is it's a thread, but it's a different kind of thread.
Right. It's totally different.
Yeah. So
it is totally. I am literally jumping the genre.
Yeah, you're really going into the wild garden.
I am, and I'm very nervous, but I'm excited. And it is it's supernatural, and it is also a mystery, and it has to do with a writer and how she is given an assignment that leads her to determine what happens to this one particular individual. So you go back in time to determine if she was really what happened to her in her life. And so there's a little bit of a possession going on. So it's got a little bit of mixture, history, and what have you. It's very different than what I'm very excited about it. This morning, right before I came, my cover artist released the templates of what my cover looks like. So I actually, it's all becoming real now.
Yeah, when you start seeing that, you're like, oh. Are we sharing the title or?
I'm going to do a cover reveal. Okay. So I'm gonna hold off. No offense, but anybody who I'm going to do a little teaser. Anybody who actually follows me on social media, her cohort in her solving this mystery. She's gifted, by the way. It will be a very familiar individual in my life. You will know who this individual is based on.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm going to put that out there.
Very exciting. Very exciting. No, I totally resonate with that. I have a play that I have been working on because, like I said, you start with the small koi garden and then it just kind of grows.
That's huge.
And, I'm not sure, I mean, I'm working on the play, and it's about a writer.
Oh.
So, it's about a writer that wakes up in the middle of the night.
Oh, my gosh.
And, again, has to unfold the story of something that's happened in the past. So,
definitely
need to talk, because I'm like, wait a second here.
This is crazy.
Yeah, so, we're definitely tuned into this universal flow of a story that needs to be told.
Yeah, right.
And, having the empowerment and, the talent and the gift and the time to say, okay, I'm going to take on this assignment.
Right.
Yes. And it really does sometimes feel like an assignment, and it can be very scary.
It is.
I mean, when I did April Rain, it was very scary because I was researching some real life crimes in order to kind of bring it into the story. And I was like, oh, what am I doing?
No, it's a very scary process because the other part is I wrote memoirs and inspirational.
Yes.
So I have a group of followers, readers. So they're very excited about this next book in a lot of ways, but now I got to deliver.
Yeah.
Now I've got to deliver it's
so
just scary.
They can find out about this next book.
That's correct.
At your website.
Yes, it will be shortly. You'll hear more about it.
All right, we'll put the little link maybe down below.
Yes.
Judith Cosby.
Judith Cosby.
Judith Cosby, rather, .com.
Yep.
And you're on social media, obviously.
Yep.
You're taking care of that. It's been published in a few magazines and newspapers where they've done some articles on you, your writing, and your stories. The books are also available for purchase where?
Amazon, Barnes & Noble.
Okay.
Cooper's, Re-Inspired, and Out of the Box.
Okay. And Cooper's is a store here in Agawam, which
correct.
Katie and I were like best friends in high school for
So
many years. And, we both went into different businesses in town. And, she's a wonderful person. So it's really great. I know she hosts you a few times a year to come in and do author signings.
Yes.
So
she's another one of my divine interventions.
Yeah.
She's an amazing person.
Yeah, her and I have some similar spiritual guides with us at all times. So someday I'll write about that maybe. But I want to thank you so much for coming on the show.
This was wonderful.
Thank you.
I
know our audience definitely got a lot out of this today. I want to thank Judy for coming in. I want to thank Studio 954 for letting us have our program and to provide the opportunity to bring yWrite to you right there in your home. yWrite is something that I created in order to help other writers because when I started writing, I was looking for help and advice and guidance. And I'm hoping that through the conversations that we have on the show, it's going to help you too. At this point of the show, I like to provide a prompt to get our writers writing. Oh. So when the show ends, I want you to pick up your pen, set a timer for like 10 minutes, and just start writing. So, in honor of Judy today and talking about, weaving threads and finding that thread that's in your life, I want you to start writing and doing a little memoir piece. And let's just start it with the words, Dear Diary. We're going to go back to being, 8, 9 years old. Dear Diary, talk about something that went on yesterday and just describe your surroundings where you are now and see where the story leads you. Again, thanks for joining me. I'm Angela Grout, and this is yWrite. See you next time.